Well, tonight we got 4 cookie recipes for you tonight, especially with the holidays coming up still. Cookies is definitely one of those, a little Santa's treat there, if not for the grandkids and everything. And most of these recipes here are real simple, easy recipes put together, and the cooking time on them is actually fairly short as well. The first one we have is a raspberry and almond shortcake cookie. Now this one, it's a favorite treat. A lot of you probably recognize this because a lot of times when you buy the little tin cans of gourmet cookies, this is one of the ones that you have in it. And you can also change out, we're using raspberry jam here. If you want to try it with other flavors like apricot or blackberry, feel free to switch it out. It all makes a great cookie that way. Next one after that, we got a Rocky Road chocolate chip cookie. Now anybody that loves chocolate is definitely going to love this one. I mean, this has to be my favorite right here. That's one I can eat all day long. Now after that, a real simple recipe we've got is a red velvet cookie. Especially with Christmas time, this is red velvet is traditional. You don't always have to just make red velvet cakes. You got cupcakes and you got these cookies and you've got the dessert bars and stuff with them. And this is a great recipe for Christmas Day. And then finally we got the chocolate chip cookies. This is more of a holiday version of the chocolate chip cookies. It's not your traditional. And you'll see when we get into the recipe, there's a couple, slightly different ingredients. You see them a lot, especially in this area around the holidays. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start off with our raspberry and almond shortcake cookies. Now I'm using parchment paper for all of these recipes. Now, if you got a really good non-stick baking pan, you could actually use that with a lot of these recipes too, with the exception of the red velvet. It may actually stick a little bit, but the other 3, you wouldn't have to use the parchment if you got a really good non-stick surface. Okay. First thing we're going to do, we're going to take some butter. You want to make sure that you soften the butter for these ingredients, because a lot of times if you're using butter that's still cold, it will not mix well with the other ingredients. So always soften that. If you have to, just go ahead and throw it in the microwave for a few seconds. If part of it melts, that's fine. It's not going to hurt it, as long as you don't get it where it's too hot to work with. Because if you heat it up too much, it can cause the fats to separate in it, and it can affect the recipe as well, unless the recipe is one of those that calls for melted, which we do have one for that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and grab a mixing bowl here. I'm going to take our sugar and some butter here. Just want to make sure to soak up all that sugar into the butter there. And if you want to use a mixer for this, a hand mixer, or there you go. I always forget about that string back there. There we go. Now if it looks a little grainy, that's okay. That's not going to hurt it any. It'll cook out and smooth out in the oven. All right. Then we will go ahead and, in this recipe, you'll notice that there's 2 things for the almond extract. One of them's for the cookie itself, and one is for the glaze. Make sure not to get those confused, because it will make a difference in the recipe. Okay. Set that there. Now with the flour, all the flour I have tonight, I've already pre-sifted. You'll actually want to sift it at least once on most of these recipes, so that way you get rid of any large chunks. because you don't want to bite down into a big glob of flour in a cookie either. Okay. Go ahead and add that in there. And you'll actually get to the point on this where it's actually better just to finish kneading it by hand as if you would dough. Basically, you want to knead it down to where you can get it into a solid mass. You feel where it starts sticking there. You can just start kneading it, rolling it there. Once you've incorporated all the flour in there, make sure you get it all around the edges and everything. You should be able to form a solid ball out of it once you're done. And of course, throw some outside of the bowl like I do all the time. So.
Now, are you supposed to throw that over your shoulder then after?
Only if you put the salt in there. Okay. And of course, with all of these recipes too, you want to have the oven preheated. Most of them, I believe, are at 350 degrees. One's at 370. Now with this, you're looking for about an inch, inch and a quarter size, about like so. If it's still a little rough, you can put just a little dab of oil in your hand to help you roll it out smooth. And then, like I do, just do like a thumbprint down there. You know, I've seen some people take, you know, the wooden spoon, opposite end handle, and just make little ones in there, or other kitchen objects to make them in there. Thumbprint works just as well. Now, when you're cooking these, it is real easy to burn these cookies, because where they're a white cookie, because when you have them in the oven, you'll see where it starts turning a little light brown on it. It's done. Don't let it get any darker, because if it gets nice, you know, a light tan color around the edge, the bottom's probably turning black by then. So you have to be real careful with this one. Now, with the preserves, especially where I'm using the raspberry preserves for this one, when you some people will put it in first. You know, after you go ahead and put your thumbprint in, they'll go ahead and put it in there and throw it in. It works out okay, but it bubbles up and it splatters and it makes a big mess all over the cookie. If you wait till halfway through the cooking cycle and then add it, it still cooks the gel to where it congels. So it's a little bit harder than normal, but doesn't bubble up and doesn't make a big of a mess. So it turns out to be just a prettier cookie. Okay. Set this aside for a second. We're going to make the icing that goes on top of this right quick. Now, where my fork go? Yep. I've already put, oh wait, this is the wrong recipe. My fault. He can edit that part out. Okay, this is the confectioner's sugar. And here's where you get the larger amount of almond extract. There. And then a tablespoon of milk. And just whisk that up. Make sure you have good, smooth consistency through it. All the edge there. Should be, when you lift it up, it should just have a nice even flow off of there. So when it comes out of the oven, you want to go ahead and put that on while it's hot. So that way it'll spread over, give it a nice glaze. And then you get this. See now, if you had put that in as you first cooked off the cookie, it literally splatters all over that, and you got little specks all over it. Still tastes fine and everything, but for presentation, this one just looks better. And then as you can see, it's a light color all the way around. For the shortbread cookies, that right there is ideal. Some people like it a little bit darker on the bottom. That's fine. I made a couple like that if that's your preference. But like I said, remember, those do burn quick, so be careful when cooking those.